He voted to raise the retirement age. That's not a fabrication. That's in his record. It's public. I'm not sure he remembers. He's been down in Florida for a few years.
Breaking news today out of Michigan, where a heated smackdown debate between two Senate candidates turned into a fillet of fraud expose. In a major development out of one of the most influential states of the most influential elections in our lifetime. The race for Michigan's upper chamber seat, currently held by retiring Democrat Debbie Stabenow for more than 2 decades now, could be the key to determining the Senate's majority next year. And it is currently just one of 3 Senate races rated toss-ups by the Cook Political Report. And the clashing candidates on the debate stage last night fighting for this monumentally influential seat were Michigan Representative Elissa Slotkin, a Democratic 3-term lawmaker who has Stabenow's endorsement, and former Representative Mike Rogers, who served in the Michigan House from 2001 to 2015 and is running with former President Trump's backing, which is fitting because Rogers also got rich off taxpayer dollars and then off from his home state to buy an overpriced dream house in Florida. Much more you won't want to miss on that in a second. And while the hour-long debate touched on a variety of topics, there were a couple key moments where Representative Slotkin absolutely took Rogers to town on the key issues that ultimately culminated in her exposing him for one of his biggest and potentially fatal flaws in his campaign. And trust me, folks, there's nothing quite as satisfying as watching a brilliant woman Democrat utterly destroying a lying Republican man and exposing him for the fraud that he is. So on that note, let's start with the first part of Mike Fraudster Rogers getting absolutely fried by his better-looking counterpart on a matter that no Republican man should ever have a say in again: abortion. Take a look at this powerful moment from Elissa Slotkin.
Of being unilaterally pro-life, of never breaking once with his party on this issue, right? So it's not a talking point to women. It is our lives. It's whether we bleed to death in a parking lot. It's who and when gets to decide how we have a family. Do not trust him.
And good old Michigan Mike didn't quite know how to handle being schooled and outclassed, so he went straight to the desperate Republican playbook of attacking his opponent for being in the CIA.
I get it. The CIA has deception training. My opponent clearly went through that. But you're supposed to use that against your adversaries, not Michigan voters.
Oh, that's going to come back to bite him in the ass very soon. Also, I'm not sure insulting your opponent for being in the CIA while you were cozied up in D.C. for 14 years is exactly the flex you think it is. It's kind of giving J.D. Vance. Maybe you should try something that'll play with the base a little more, like, I don't know, denying FEMA relief money and then lying about how it's being used on illegal immigrants.
Congressman Rogers, you have 30 seconds, and just if you can include, would you appropriate or be in favor of appropriating more money for FEMA?
Well, we have to get it right, first of all. Again, diverting that money for illegals coming across the border is an absolute non-starter for me, and it really should be a non-starter for most Michigan citizens. Again, my opponent voted and voted and voted to allow that money to go to illegal immigrants.
Jesus Christ, that was the second time they asked him that, and he still couldn't give an adequate answer. Republicans really need some new material. But by far the best moment of the night, and one that you'd hope would seal the deal for Michigan Mike, was when Slotkin slammed him for, get this, living in f***ing Florida.
You have 30 seconds in rebuttal.
Sure. I look, there's no need to throw names around here or yell epithets at each other. We have a record. He voted to raise the retirement age. That's not a fabrication. That's in his record. It's public. I'm not sure he remembers. He's been down in Florida for a few years, but your record when you vote in Congress is public.
A Florida man, if you were retiring from someplace cold like Michigan, you could do worse than this $1.6 million estate in Cape Coral, Florida. You can see it has beautiful views. It has a very nice pool. This home, it's called an estate in its real estate listings. It was purchased just 2 years ago in the summer of 2022. It was purchased by Michigan Republican Congressman Mike Rogers. He served 7 terms in Congress. He spent 6 years in the Michigan State Senate before that, all before he decided to pitch it all in and retire to Florida to live in his dream house. I mean, between D.C. and Michigan, I guess, I don't know if you can blame him for wanting a taste of exceptional waterfront living in a much warmer location. Just 6 months after Mike Rogers bought his new dream home in Florida. an even more prime piece of real estate opened up. Michigan Democratic U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow announced that she was retiring from the U.S. Senate. And this new Florida resident, Mike Rogers, he really wanted to run for that Michigan U.S. Senate seat. But unfortunately, that would mean he'd have to move back to Michigan. Well, Mike Rogers decided he would buy this lovely little house in White Lake Township, Michigan. He bought it, then immediately knocked it down. This photo was taken by local reporter John King of the Michigan Advance on April 30th. It shows an empty plot of land where the house Mike Rogers bought used to be. 2 months after this picture was taken, Mike Rogers registered to vote using that property as his home address. Then 1 month after that, he voted for himself in the Republican primary for that U.S. Senate seat using that address as his voter registration location. Now, all this is turning out to be a problem for U.S. Senate candidate Mike Rogers. According to the Detroit Free Press, the house that Mike Rogers is still building on that spot isn't done. It, quote, did not, at the time he voted, and does not now, have a certificate of occupancy, which means Mike Rogers could not legally live there. Quote, and if he didn't live there, he may have broken the law by using that address to vote.
What an absolute fraudulent scumbag. Just another insufferable rich Republican trying to maintain control over people he doesn't care about or rightfully represent by attempting to run in a state he doesn't even live in. How did Republicans go from the party of minimal government to the party of government trying to stick its grubby, pussy-grabbing fingers into every facet of everyone's lives without their say? Folks, you know what to do. Make sure you're registered to vote, vote blue, and spread the word about those down-ballot races, because even though they may not get as much attention, they are just as, if not more, important. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse, and I'll see you all in the next one.